let's get back to our session today, and another great week with Olga, who's joined us. So those of you who joined us last week know how Olga managed to take this kind of complicated, confusing subject and make it simple to understand. And she gave us some great tips to try at home if we've got digestive issues. If you weren't able to join us last week, we sent out a newsletter on Monday, last Monday, with a link to the recording. So you can watch that again, or you can watch it, or you can watch it again if you've already seen it. And then if the link stops working at any point, just go check on the YouTube channel, because we moved them from Zoom onto YouTube. So you can always access them off there. So today, Olga's going to be focusing on the large intestines, or the intestine, I should say, and the health of your gut bacteria, or that word that we keep hearing, microbiome. So there's been a lot of talk about microbiome over the last years and how important it is for our digestion, and how it really helps us with our immune system too, which is appropriate for these times, and protects us from these disease-causing bacteria. So very excited about this week. I really want to learn more about this too. So Olga, welcome back.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back with us. I am going to make you co-host, right? So you can share your screen. Bear with me, guys, please. Let's find you here. There we go. Make co-host. Okay.
Excellent.
Olga.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Stella, and well, welcome everyone. So happy to have so many of you today. And yes, today we're going to cover the second part of the presentation on the gastrointestinal health. So I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see my slides. Okay, here we go. Right. And again, as last time, please type your questions as we go. And if I have time, I will pick up the questions during the presentation. And if not, we're going to answer them at the end. Okay, so last time we talked about our mouth, stomach, small intestine, transit time, and all of this links very nicely into large intestine. So today we're just going to talk about, the physiology of large intestine, what happens there, and also about our microbiome. Very, very big topics. Again, we have only an hour to go through that, so I'll try to be very concise. So our large intestine is 1.5 meters long, and it almost like receives leftovers. Everything that hasn't been digested or absorbed goes into large intestine, and it's a mixture of water, cellulose, undigestible materials. So what our large intestine does, it just removes that water, and it also hosts lots of different types of bacteria, viruses, parasites, so our microbiome. And you remember when we talked about slow gut transit? So when it goes a lot slower than it should be, it may have negative effect on the large intestine, and that's why it's very important thing. So all of the byproducts from protein degradation, such as ammonia or sulfur compounds, which at high concentration might damage the cells of the bowel directly. So if we have slow transit time, all of these toxic compounds can kind of damage and create inflammation. And this is what we think, or one of the contributory factors to inflammatory bowel disease or IBS as well. So it can, give you some symptoms such as bloating, constipation, or even, some markers in your stool sample, like inflammatory markers, can be high due to that. So bacteria will then, if you have a slow transit time, bacteria will starve, because bacteria needs to have that, fermentable fiber that it feeds on, the prebiotics that it feeds on. So, and starving bacteria, when it doesn't get enough fiber, it will start feed on the protective mucus that layers the intestinal wall from the inside, and it may cause it to become thinner. So that's why, again, the transit time is super important for the health of the large intestine and our bacteria. So the microbiome, it plays a very, very important role in providing the environment. Our large intestine is very important to provide environment for the microbiome. And it contains, as you know, trillions of bacteria, and they protect your gut, and they sorry guys, could you please all mute yourself, because I can hear some disturbance. Yeah. So the trillions of bacteria that protect your gut by forming the mucus barrier. So that mucus barrier is very, very important, because it's the layer that protects you from the outside world. So everything that goes inside with the food that we eat is still the outside world, and we still need to have really, really good protection on the wall of the intestine. So bacteria produces substantial amounts of a lot of different vitamins by fermentation. We know that it produces vitamin B12 for us and some other B vitamins. Vitamin K, for example, vitamin K2 specifically, that is very important for our bone health, is produced by bacteria, because there is not many food sources of vitamin K2. They produce B vitamins, biotin, then vitamins absorbed through the walls of the intestine in our blood directly. And our microbiome affects absorption of key minerals such as iron, as we know already. Right, so this is what our microbiome is. So we have bacteria, fungi, parasites, yeasts, viruses, everything, all of these microorganisms, they create our microbiome. And the latest science shows that we only about 10% human. The rest of our cells are coming from the microbiome that we carry or that lives inside of us. We have bacteria all over. It's not just, inside of our large intestine. It's on our skin, it's everywhere on our body. Mm-hmm. So we are actually outnumbered by our bacteria. And a lot of, the scientific community now thinks that the health of that bacteria is actually what makes us who we are. It controls us even. So like a fingerprint, each person's microbiome is going to be unique, and the mix of bacteria in your body is different for everyone else's mix. But we do already have a really good idea of what a healthy microbiome looks like. It needs to be very diverse, and it needs to have a very good level of good type of bacteria, at least. So when the first inoculation of bacteria you get from the birth canal when you're born. So that's why we see the difference between children born by cesarean section and children born naturally. Their microbiome is distinctively different. And that also affects their long-term health, as we know. Okay, so research also suggests that gut bacteria in healthy people are different from those with certain diseases. So we've been able to identify that through the studies. And people who are sick may have too little or too much of certain type of bacteria, or they may lack a wide variety of bacteria. So, and it's also thought that some kinds of bacteria may protect against certain diseases, conditions, or symptoms, while others may put you at risk. So this is why it's really important to know your microbiome. So we can actually now check your microbiome and see what you're made of. Very interesting things that research is focusing now on the link between microbiome and our health, and something that I'm using in clinic quite a lot. So first of all, metabolism and weight regulation. We do now know that there are certain types of bacteria that blocks absorption of calories, fats, carbohydrates. So basically you can eat the same diet as the next person, but you're not going to be putting on weight as much as that other person. So you can have exactly the same diet, but because you have difference in your microbiome composition, you'll put on weight and the other person will lose weight. just because of that bacteria. There are other types of bacteria that actually would eat that fiber and undigested fiber or undigested prebiotics, or even undigested proteins, and they will produce more sugar, more calories that you will then absorb. So you almost double in on the calories that you're eating just because of that bacteria. So we also know that people with IBD, so that's inflammatory bowel disease, they have lower levels of certain anti-inflammatory gut bacteria. There's also a link with colon cancer. So again, different types of gut bacteria, including high levels of disease-causing bacteria, and we now can identify them. And there is a big link between health of microbiome and diversity of microbiome and anxiety, depression, and autism. So we now call it second brain, because the scientists now believe that this is the bacteria that actually controls our mind, and it's so powerful. I'll show you a couple of slides later. There are several experiments recently done which shows that gut bacteria actually controls how we feel and how we behave, which is very, very powerful. There is also a link with skin conditions. So if anyone has any issues like acne that is resistant, and things like eczema, psoriasis, so anything to do with your skin, we first look in the gut microbiome for sure. There's also a link with cardiovascular disease. So your cholesterol, for example, if you have very high resistant to medication cholesterol, we would look in the gut first of all, because that's a gut bacteria that makes you absorb that cholesterol from your food first of all. And also, there is a specific type of bacteria that helps you get rid of cholesterol from the blood, even that. There is a big link with our immune system, which is obviously very, very important now. I'll show you a couple of studies that I found that have been published only last month that shows that there is this very, very powerful link. So here we go, gut microbiota and COVID-19 possible link and implication. So I've highlighted it here, what they found, the main thing. So improving gut microbiota profile by personalized nutrition and supplementation known to improve immunity. So they found that link, and then there was this study only produced in May 2020. What they did here, they tested microbiome samples or stool samples of people who were in hospitals with COVID-19 and with bad symptoms. And they obviously, and then they tested controls, so that people who did not have COVID-19, like, you know, very healthy people with healthy immune systems. And they found very big differences in their microbiome. So first of all, they found that they found some types of opportunistic pathogens in the gut microbiome. So where we call them sometimes potential pathogens, so the bacteria types that can create or can cause diseases or conditions. And they also found the depletion of beneficial commensals. Commensals, when they say commensals, they mean good type of bacteria. There's a number of different types of bacteria that are considered good, or beneficial for us. So there are two things here. First of all, we have an imbalance. We have really high level of opportunistic or bad type of bacteria, and then we have a depletion of good type of bacteria. So we can work on both of them in order to rebalance that and make your immune system stronger. The study also found a big link between how bad a person suffers from COVID-19 and gut bacteria again. So two important things here. If you have a very healthy microbiome or composition of the microbiome, you are less likely to catch COVID-19 because your immune system will be stronger. And also, even if you catch COVID-19, you are less likely to suffer any symptoms at all, which is great. I think it's very powerful. We never knew really, you know, because when we talk about immune system, we always think, oh, it's vitamin C, it's zinc, it's perhaps selenium and some other vitamins and minerals that, you know, have the link to immunity. But now we know how it all works. It all works via our gut microbiome, because yes, that's really important. That's probably the first thing that we need to look at. Right, so this is the very interesting story. That was done in the 60s, and it just shows how gut microbes or gut microbiome influences our brain. So what they've done, they infected mice with toxoplasmosis. So this is one type of pathogenic bacteria or pathogenic parasite even. And what it does to mouse, it hijacks their brain and makes them lose the fear of cats. And they actually start loving cats. And as a consequence, they get killed by cats. So this parasite is very, very clever. It wants to get inside of the cat's body, and it does it through the mouse. So when mouse is eaten, parasites in the cat. What they also found that change in mouse's brain, that loving for cat, it never changed. It never changed back. Even when they removed that bacteria or killed that parasite, the mouse was still in love with the cat. So, which actually shows how powerful that thing that, you know, that we have in our guts, what it does to us. And I've actually done a whole TED talk about it. So you can, if you just Google fast way to happy, you'll see it's on YouTube as well. And I talk about how, you know, all of the links between depression and anxiety and how our, you know, gut microbiome influences our brain. So just wanted to highlight this here for you, because just about the importance of microbiome for overall health. Right, I can see some questions, I believe. Let me see. Yes. How do you improve your microbiome? Yes, this is what we're going to talk about now. Absolutely. If the bacteria form the mucus barrier, but you said they feed on the protective mucus, if transit time is slow, does this mean that they eat themselves? Yes, different types of bacteria. So we do know that the beneficial type of bacteria forms that mucus layer, so they are protecting us. But then if we have slow transit time, that same type of bacteria can start eating that mucus back. Yes, because they don't get the food. Yeah, and then that thins the protective layer. Okay, how can you increase the missing bacteria in depression? Yes, if you Google my talk, it's all about mental health and how you can improve your gut bacteria specifically for mental health. So it's called Fast Way to Happy. Or like you can Google my name and YouTube, and then it should come up as well. And is there a way to find out the specific bacteria responsible for weight loss, for example? Yes, there is a way, and I'm showing it to you right now. So here we go. This is the stool test that we do that shows commensal bacteria, and it breaks down all of the different types of, we call them phylums, so big classes of different bacteria. And the bacteria that is responsible for weight regulation is this one. So it's in the bottom here, Akkermansia. And I don't even need to see the person. I can definitely say that this person does not have Akkermansia bacteria, and that means they're probably struggling with their weight. You know, and this kind of person, what they normally say in clinic is that, oh, I only look at a sandwich and I already put on weight. So this is type of description that I would think, oh, okay, it's probably Akkermansia. So you can see here, it's very low. So we want all of the bacteria to be kind of here in the green in the middle. Some of the bacteria we don't want to see at all. So like, for example, you can see the sulfur vibrio. It does not have a green line at all. So it's yellow or red. So if it's red, it's too high and it's overgrowth. So it's in balance. And if it's too low, or DL here, DL means below detectable levels. That means that person doesn't have that bacteria at all, but we can grow it. Right, so by looking at this, I can immediately say that, okay, so the sulfur vibrio is high, so that's probably some symptoms that I know associated with that type of bacteria. So that's normally halitosis, so this is when your breath smells, and your teeth are fine, you brush your teeth twice a day, but your breath still smells and you don't know the reason, yeah? So that could be due to that bacteria, because that bacteria produces sulfur, and then sometimes that they describe the smell like rotten cabbage or eggs. So I'll definitely think that this person has some kind of digestive issues, or digestive symptoms. So I can also see that they have a methane producing bacteria here, so Methanobrevibacter. You can see it's, again, very high levels. So this is bacteria that is associated with slow transit time and constipation. And yeah, so the others that are really important in this particular person, they have quite a good level of good commensal bacteria, but one of them is completely missing again. So you can see number 3 on the list, Barnezellia ziella. Sorry, I can't pronounce that properly. Again, it says DL, so that's below detectable levels. So that's very low. So we already see some disturbances in the gut microbiome, so we know where to target, how to target our, probiotic prescription, so to say, or our food prescriptions. Right, this is again the same test, but it shows you some other markers that we also look at. So it's not just about the microbiome, we look at the markers of inflammation, of how your immune system functions, how you break down your proteins, for example. So here we can see that this person has quite high level of fecal secretory IgA. So that's yellow, that's not red yet, but it's in yellow. So that's slightly elevated. And that means that this person's immune system is aggravated, or it's a little bit stimulated by something. It's fighting against something. So we need to find out what, but I'm thinking it's probably the bacteria that it's fighting. And then in insufficiency here, you can see that we detected quite high level of protein products. And that means we detected undigested protein in the stool sample. And that could mean several things. Low level of stomach acid. Again, remember that stomach acid is responsible for starting protein digestion, or your pancreatic enzymes are not efficient or probably not good level. So we would look at both to improve both of them in order to improve protein digestion and absorption. We can also see that there is some imbalance here. So PP, yeast, and fungi. So in this person, again, we found some PP means potential pathogen, so yeast overgrowth, and also some fungi. So we're gonna obviously see what they are. And also beta-glucuronidase. So that's an interesting marker because it shows it's a product of certain potentially pathogenic bacteria. So we know if you have that bacteria, and in what numbers, again, very important, the numbers as well, the ratios, because if you produce too much beta-glucuronidase, or if those bacteria produce too much beta-glucuronidase in your gut, that means that you may get recirculation of steroid hormones that your body is trying to eliminate. And then, I'm not sure if I should get into this now in detail, but if you have questions, if you have any issues with hormones, that would be the first marker I would look at, beta-glucuronidase. Then again, you see on this colorful graph here where this person's result actually plotted on. So we want to see the results here in the green zone, but you can see this person is here. So the black square here is where the results are compared to the rest of the population, to a healthy cohort. And here again, we can see the comparison of the patient result and healthy, what we want to see. And you can see that this person has a lot more of different types of bacteria. It's missing one. You can see the purple one here, or light violet color, is missing here on the top. And instead, this person has this light blue color, which shouldn't be present at all. So quite a lot of information for me to focus on. So now I know what to do with this particular person in clinic. Right. Of course, we know. Now let's talk about what we can do about this and how I would approach it in the clinic. We do know that obviously diet is the most important determinant of our microbiome. And studies show that diet alone accounts for about 60% of our microbial diversity. And what you eat, especially ratios and amounts of protein, saturated, unsaturated fats, carbohydrates, and dietary fiber, they all influence the abundance of different types of bacteria, because all of these different types of macronutrients, they feed different types of bacteria. And this is how you can manipulate your gut microbiome composition. It can be modified by adding, obviously, probiotics as well, as you know, and periods of fasting also has been shown in studies to improve diversity of gut microbiome, and eating prebiotic foods that feed our gut microbiome, so specific types of fiber. And research is now so good that they actually now can tell us with, with scientific studies which bacteria prefers which type of food from, which even phytonutrients, and we can then specifically prescribe, like for example, for Akkermansia, we know in order to grow it, we need to give you brown seaweed because it contains specific fiber to feed that bacteria, and also cranberries, which is very random, right? But that's what research is telling us. So probiotics, obviously you can get them as supplements, and there's a lot of different strains on the market. And some of the strains are now very, very specific. So I've seen on the market strains that make you, lift your mood even, for example, or reduce your cholesterol. So they become that specific now. And then also you can get probiotics or live bacteria from fermented foods. So that's when we talk about, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, kefir, all of these things. So every nation, every culture have this, traditional fermented foods. Like in England, it's probably beer is the one, but it needs to be unpasteurized beer, obviously, in order to get the live bacteria in there. Like Japan is obviously very famous with their probiotics or fermented vegetables. So it's, like in Eastern Europe, it's kefir. So every culture's got something like that. And we also have prebiotics. So prebiotics are different. They are the food for the bacteria. So, and we can get them from a lot of different vegetables, plant foods, and we can also get them from supplements. Right, let's see what we have. I think there's lots of questions here. Okay, so from Hillary, and in what way is the microbiome of an adult affected by birth by C-section? What may be the results? We see in the studies, a lot of studies done on children who are born to C-section, they have higher risk of developing asthma and like hay fever conditions. I haven't looked at this specifically, but if you look at the at the studies, you'll be able to find a lot of different studies, the association studies. So it increases the risk of certain type of diseases or conditions in the future. Yeah. Can you give us some idea of the cost of doing this test, please? Yes, sure. So the microbiome test is I believe £495. All of the prices are on Bodhimaya website. I'll show you the Bodhimaya link at the end, so you'll be able to see. Okay, let me see the time. Okay, we're doing okay. What is the name of the second test, please? Second test. It was just one test, and it's a DNA type of stool test. So it's a PCR technology that they use. So it's an American company that we use. They consider it to be the best in the world. So it's the most kind of advanced technology. I would also like to know the name and lab who does this, please. Yes, of course, there will be all information at the end. Oh yes, Stella already responded to that. Oh, thank you, Stella. Sorry. Okay, great. Right, let's carry on. So yeah, so this is the study that when they measure the impact of dietary change on the human gut microbiome. And what they found, it was so fast that you can actually change your gut microbiome within 3 to 4 days by just changing how you eat. In this particular instance, I think they changed from protein type of diet into a more plant-based diet. But I think the change was quite dramatic. So the change needs to be dramatic in order to change our gut microbiome. Right, and we also probably, you probably also heard about this hunter-gatherer Hadza people who live very traditionally in Africa. I think it's in the, Kenya where they live, and they're very famous because a lot of studies on gut microbiome are done on these people. They don't have diabetes type 2, they don't have cancer, they don't have any, you know, lifestyle, dietary related conditions or diseases, because they live completely, you know, natural life. And it was always interesting for the scientific community to find out why. So now they know why, because of their gut microbiome, and it's so diverse and it's so good and it's so resilient that it makes them almost like superhumans. So there is also this professor, Tim Spector. So he's the lead researcher at King's College London. He does a lot of studies on the microbiome, and he's done a lot of studies on DNA and twins. And so it's quite interesting. He did this study on them, and I think he also went there and he changed his gut microbiome within 3 days, which was like mind-blowing result. Right, so let's get into those fermented foods or probiotics. It needs to be fermented. So it doesn't matter what it is, but it needs to be fermented, and it also cannot be pasteurized. So when you choose your sauerkraut, for example, that you can buy in the shops now, do make sure that you get unpasteurized. It needs to be, it needs to say it on the packaging. If it's pasteurized, bacteria is killed off. There is no point of, I mean, there is still point of eating cabbage, of course, because cabbage is good for us, but there is no live bacteria in there. By comparison, a tablespoon of sauerkraut would contain more bacteria than a whole pack of probiotic supplements. So here you go. This is another way how you can make your gut bacteria diverse and improve the good type of gut bacteria. So again, this is just some examples of what fermented foods are. So miso, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, all of these different types of yogurts, kefir. Again, you can get yogurts made with almond milk now or coconut milk. Even raw cheeses, you know, this French paradox that we still don't know what exactly is happening here, is that French people eat cheese and drink wine, and they still have lower levels of cardiovascular disease compared to English or British people. And we now know why, because they eat raw unpasteurized cheeses, which contain probiotic bacteria that actually protects them from cardiovascular disease. And one of the cheeses that is famous for that is Roquefort. So they've done a lot of studies of looking at Roquefort consumption and cardiovascular disease, and it does help. It does seem to be the secret that we're finding out now. You can also, you can make your own probiotics. You can do fermentation yourself. It's quite easy to do, because I know the jar of sauerkraut can cost, you know, £4 or £5. And it's just cabbage. It shouldn't cost that much money. A whole kilo of cabbage is 50p. Like, why is it so expensive? It's beyond me. So that's why I make it myself. I make kimchi. I bought a book, How to Make Kimchi, and I just follow the recipe. It may take you, let's say, an hour to chop everything and to put everything together. But then when you ferment it, you put it in the jar and it ferments on its own. You don't need to do anything, and it doesn't spoil, because you could just leave it outside and it carries on fermenting. So bacteria, you carry on growing bacteria in that, you know, in that jar. You can then just put it in the fridge and it doesn't spoil for like 6 months. So one batch of sauerkraut that I make can last me up to 6 months. And I can eat that, you know, almost every day. You can add it to your salads, to your stir fries, to wherever, really. So you can also make your own kefir, you probably know, with kefir grains. You can make your own kombucha using Scooby, which is the starter for kombucha. You see, because they all have also different types of bacteria in there. And depending on the starter, on the type of vegetable that you ferment. There is a whole website. You can just Google different, you know, how to make sauerkraut, and you'll find plenty of recipes. And now let's talk about prebiotics. So prebiotics are also equally important, because these are the fibers of fermentable carbohydrates that our bacteria loves to eat. And if we don't feed them, they're just gonna die and they're not gonna be in our intestines. But we want to have them. That's why we need to feed them. We talked about these fermentable carbohydrates and fibers in the first part. So all of these foods probably are not suitable for people who have SIBO, because this is the typical foods that contain high amount of fiber, and people with SIBO who have overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine where they shouldn't have it. Bacteria will then, eat that fiber, ferment it, produce gas, give you bloating, acid reflux, and all of the other things. So if these kinds of food give you symptoms, it's probably SIBO. So we need to work on that first to eliminate that, and then we'll look after your gut microbiome, the large intestine microbiome, where these kind of foods are actually needed. Mm-hmm. But if you're healthy, this is how to improve your microbiome. Just eat more of these vegetables, and there's a lot of different fibers they contain. So we do know about 6 or 7 different types of fibers that are currently being researched for that specific purpose of feeding our good type of gut bacteria. So there is fructooligosaccharides. You've probably seen that as a supplement as well. They're called FOS. And but you can also get them from food. So these are the most the richest food sources for fructooligosaccharides. And the other type is Galacto oligosaccharides. So they are normally contained in legumes. So all different beans and lentils and peas and chickpeas, and I even have the grams here. So the grams are per 100 grams. So 100 grams of lentils will give you about 8 grams of Galacto oligosaccharides, or this fermentable fiber. But we need about 30 grams of fiber per day. So all of these studies show us that we only eat about 18 in general in our population. So it's not enough basically to sustain a healthy microbiome. So we need to aim for about 30 grams of fiber per day. And actually looking at this, it's quite doable. So you can do it through legumes, vegetables, and fruit. So there is another type of fiber. So the inulin is the type of fiber that is linked to our metabolism, so weight regulation. So these are, again, very similar foods, and this is the amount of inulin per 100 gram in those foods. Right, beta-glucans. So this is another very important type of fiber. So this is normally linked to immune function. And if you get any immune type of supplements, they will most of them will contain these beta-glucans, and they normally extracted from oats or from mushrooms. So this is the type of fiber that is linked to our cholesterol, because it would block cholesterol absorption in the gut, or feed the specific bacteria that blocks absorption of cholesterol. So this is why if someone's got very high cholesterol, we recommend to have oat bran, because oat bran is the richest source of beta-glucans, and also different types of mushrooms. Again, go for variety. And I think the richest would be the kind of exotic type mushrooms like oyster or maitake mushrooms. Seaweed is another one. So seaweed is a newcomer on the whole microbiome scene. We find in that seaweed is actually very, very beneficial. And there's a lot of different types of seaweed in the world. And you probably know that Japanese culture, they eat seaweed on daily basis. And I don't know if I've been to Japan, I have not seen obese people in there, not many at all. So we think, scientific community is thinking that eating fermented vegetables, having a lot of seaweed, and also obviously fish in their diet is responsible for that. Okay, so this is how the day of 30 grams of fiber would look like. Again, I tried to use all of the normal kind of foods here, so that's easy for majority of people. But again, I would probably still say that it's very personal. So not everyone can have, you know, Weetabix and be healthy or have a healthy digestive system, because it's gluten, obviously, and you know, may not be suitable for a lot of people. Not everyone can have things like nuts, for example. So a lot of people are sensitive to nuts or have allergies or intolerances. So it needs to be the dietary plan that we build is obviously very personalized or very tailored to a person. But this is just like an example. So 30 grams of fiber per day. And also remember, we talked about a variety of different things. So it's about having broccoli one day and next day having cauliflower and next day having Brussels sprouts. It's not about having broccoli every day anymore, because again, we want variety of different things and variety of different fibers to feed different types of bacteria. So it's not the same thing every day. That's why variety in diet is very important as well. I also touched on fiber supplements. So I think, so this is just to reinforce variety and again, different colors in the diet. So the rainbow, this is why everyone's recommending the rainbow, because different colors in different fruits and vegetables would feed different types of microbiome. Because the colors are, what we find in colors, it's just the phytonutrients that the vegetables or fruit contain. And those phytonutrients are actually the ones that feed microbiome in addition to fiber as well. Right, so this is about the fiber supplements that I use, for example. So again, this is just an example of cognac, glucomannan, dietary supplementation, and it causes significant fat loss. So that was the study done on overweight adults, and that's the only thing they did. Basically, they just gave them, I think it's 3 grams of glucomannan fiber per day, and they then measured their body weight, body fat, and also cholesterol levels. So, and they shown efficacy. So it does work quite significantly. So. And that was a good result. I would normally add, if I mix fiber for a client, I would normally, if they have, you know, issues with cholesterol or issues with weight regulation, I would add cognac fiber into the mix. In order to grow Akkermansia, as I mentioned, there's aronia as well, and brown seaweed. So this is the bacteria that we want to grow that helps us with our weight regulation. So aronia is the berry that you can get freeze-dried already. So it's prepared like a supplement, and then you mix it into the mix with brown seaweed. Again, there is a specific fiber from brown seaweed or freeze-dried brown seaweed. And then you also can mix some glucomannan in there, and it will be your weight loss fiber supplement. And again, all of the different fibers and different kind of sources of fiber are being studied now, and a lot of scientific studies already available, and they're very, very specific. So if someone's struggling with them, if we talk about the mood and depression and anxiety, we already know which fibers we need to add in order to grow specific bacteria. Okay, let's move on. Right, now, also, it's not just about the diet. We do know that a lot of different things in our environment affect our microbiome. We know that physical activity is beneficial because it improves our gut microbiome diversity. Vitamin D and the sunlight specifically also improves our diversity. Sleep, very important. If you suffer from insomnia, the chances are your microbiome is depleted. And pets. We do know that if you have a pet, your microbiome is much more diverse. Okay, so it's very beneficial to have any type of pet. Now, the antimicrobiota compounds. There's so many different dietary things that we eat in processed foods that unfortunately does deplete our good type of bacteria. So that's why it's important to eat organic, just because of the pesticides. They do reduce our good type of bacteria. Stress also affects our bacteria. alcohol consumption, of course, and artificial sweeteners. They are particularly bad, especially, aspartame. There's lots of studies done on that. There's no question about it. It does damage our gut microbiome. So if you really wanted to have Coca-Cola, then go for full sugar. I would say that, but obviously not every day. So this is one of the studies. They actually found that it was toxic to our gut bacteria, Diet Coke. So because Diet Coke is the one that contains aspartame. And right, another interesting thing is obviously antibiotics. They are prescribed sometimes without a need, because we see a lot of antibiotic resistant bacteria. So I would probably say if you absolutely must have, if it's a question of life and death, then yes, go for it, of course. But don't use antibiotics for every cold or flu that you have. Let your body fight itself. You have the resources. You can take probiotics instead, and it does help you to fight that flu or that. Because it improves your immune system. But antibiotics do have a really kind of devastating effect on our gut microbiome. And it does kind of rebound back, but again, looking at the studies, it may not go back to the normal healthy as you were before taking antibiotics. And this is especially true when we do the stool test for someone who's had a history of antibiotic a lot of antibiotic use in the past. We see in very low levels of all good type of bacteria, and it's really difficult to then try and grow them from the scratch, because there's also other factors why bacteria doesn't want to stay inside of your intestines. There's the environment issue as well, maybe a mucus issue, maybe it's some pathogenic issue. So there's a lot of different things to look at then. And antibiotics also predispose us to catching all of the, potentially pathogenic bacteria from the food that we eat, from the environment, because again, it strips off your protection, your good type of bacteria. So that's another study, just about the disruption of gut ecosystem by antibiotics. We also seen that it's not just antibiotics, it's a lot of different medication that affects our gut microbiome, and it affects it in a negative way, unfortunately. So this study looked at the antipsychotic drugs. So this is something that is prescribed for depression, and they unfortunately, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and most of the time they damage our gut microbiome. So actually doing the opposite of what we want for depression. Okay, so these are my 5 top tips, so we can get to the questions now. Definitely prioritize plant-based and whole foods because they are fiber-rich. So again, we're going for a variety of different things, and because it has very high fiber content, it improves your gut transit time and obviously keeps your digestion regular. If you can limit the use of antibiotics, because again, it kills you a good type of bacteria. Eat and focus on prebiotic foods. So you've got all of the lists of the prebiotic foods. They all, excellent. They, again, think about variety, not just one thing every day. Try and go for 30 grams per day and 30 different types of plant foods per week. I have like a calendar where I write down all of the new types of plant things that I've eaten during the day, and then I count them at the end of the week. And it makes you want to try and eat new types of vegetables. So even for me, just because I'm writing it down. So it does work when you write it down. And yes, think about probiotic foods. If you never tried kimchi or sauerkraut, go for it, but start slowly again, because it's quite a lot of bacteria in there. And if you're digestion sensitive, or if you have any like bloating issue, it actually can make you a bit worse. So start slowly. And think about fiber supplements. You can make your mix yourself, just do some research and see what exactly your health issues are or your health goals, and you can work it out. Or, you can always ask me, of course, I'm happy to help. And so this is my contact information. I believe Stella also provided the Bodhimaya. Yeah, sorry, that's my personal information. That's not my Bodhimaya contact details, but I'll make sure Stella's got my Bodhimaya contact details for all of you to ask questions. Okay, Stella, I'll pass it back to you so we can go through some questions.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Gosh, it's fascinating. I hope you don't mind, guys. Before I get to your questions, I've got a couple of questions. So I just wanted to ask, I mean, it's fascinating about the variety of plant-based foods. I mean, you can get really, you know, kind of just stuck in your ways and with the vegetables you like, and you just eat the same ones over and over. I'm going through a thing about artichokes right now, so all I do is seem to eat artichokes, but I'm forgetting all the others. So, you know, that was a great reminder. Thank you. I do have a question about gluten just before we go to these. It's, you know, it's very fashionable right now to like be gluten intolerant or not eat gluten at all. I mean, what's your position on that? Because some people say nobody should eat gluten because it's just bad for you, and other people have a different position on that.
I'm not very categorical about it. I mean, there are gluten sensitivity tests that we can do. There is also celiac disease, which is a no-no completely for gluten. And there are also certain health conditions like thyroid. I'll probably say definitely no-no. But if you're healthy, if you have absolutely no digestive issues, no digestive symptoms, I mean, as long as you're not eating gluten 3 times a day, I don't have a problem with that, yeah.
Right, okay, because there is, you know, there seems to be a bit of an obsession with that. Okay, let's take some of these questions. This is a good one. What's the relationship between food allergies and the microbiome?
Yes, that's a good one. There is a relation, and very strong one. Again, it's all about having good type of gut bacteria. So, for example, I have several cases when people are allergic to eggs. I had a couple of cases actually with eggs, quite interesting. It was proper food allergy. They would go in hives and they would definitely have like almost anaphylactic type of reaction. So what we do, we work on the gut microbiome, but very specific. We heal the gut lining, we, you know, improve the intestinal permeability, improve their digestion, and then, you know, repopulate the gut with probiotics, prebiotics, so it all works perfectly. It probably takes about 6 months, I would say at least. And then suddenly their food sensitivities and allergies disappear.
Very interesting. And it's important to note here the difference between allergies and intolerances, right? Because a lot of people feel like they've got allergies, but an allergy, as you say, can be fatal, versus an intolerance just makes you feel bad. Yeah.
It's different tests. So for allergy, classic allergy, it's IgE test that your doctors can do, and that's accepted scientific kind of proof that you have an allergy to something like nuts or crustaceans or celery, for example. But food sensitivity or intolerance is I think I described that in the first part, when you're not breaking it down properly and it gets into your bloodstream through the intestinal permeability, the gaps in the lining of your gut, and then your immune system builds antibody, and this is the antibody that we find in the blood. Yes.
Right. Karen, just to say, sauerkraut, if pasteurized, Olga mentioned that it shouldn't be pasteurized. Otherwise it kills off the bacteria if it is pasteurized. Here's another question. Can vegan cheeses contain probiotics or prebiotics?
Ooh, good question. I never looked. Look at the back of the pack and see if they use any bacteria to ferment the cheese with. I don't think so. Like, I've recently tried this cheese made with coconut oil. I don't think there was any bacteria there. No.
Okay. You touched on how much fermented food we should eat each day, right? You went through that, I think.
Well, how much? No, I haven't really. I mean, I said start slowly, see how you can tolerate it. And then I eat quite a lot of fermented foods, yeah.
Yeah, and Victoria also asked, should you vary the fermented food, or like could you have just like kimchi every day, or do you need to, or sauerkraut every day, or do you, like with the vegetables, do you need to vary that and get a wide range in?
Well, ideally, yes. Yeah, change your
Ideally.
fermented foods as well. Yes, it's about variety. Yes.
Ideally. So Victoria, lots of pickling needs to be happening. This is, is water kefir also probiotic?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. Okay. This one from Claire, I don't know if you see this. Is it possible to say what to do with SIBO, having had rifloxamine a year ago, if there's a simple answer? That's probably quite a detailed question.
So sorry about SIBO. This is really, okay, I found it. Yeah, this is really interesting. Is it possible to say what to do with SIBO having had rifaximin a year ago, if there is a simple answer? I'm not sure I understand the question. You need to retest. We need to see how effective rifaximin was. Okay. Sometimes we're not seeing any movement on the production of the gas. So some people are resistant to antibiotics like rifaximin.
Yeah. Fiona asks, are you more in favor of increasing bacteria through food, or are probiotics as good, and should they be taken every day? I mean, you mentioned that, didn't you, that food is probably a better source, but
yeah, but if you don't like, fermented foods in particular, then probiotics is a good way. Yeah, but
okay.
you get the right strains, the ones that are actually relevant to your health. Yeah.
Yeah. Are vegetables and fruit as beneficial in a NutriBullet like smoothie, or are the main benefits lost?
No, if it's blended, it's still there. Yes.
Yeah.
If it's juice, though, you remove the fiber and.
Yeah. So it's better to smoothie than juice, because. Gosh, there's so many questions here. Does microbiome affect the lungs?
Oh,
could it affect the lungs?
Yeah, probably is. I've never looked into research, but my guess is yes, it affects everything. Yes.
Okay. Dee asked a question about silver psyllin. Is it good for gut health?
Oh gosh, I can't see it. I can't see.
Okay.
I'm not sure what it is.
Okay, we don't know what it is.
Silver compound. I think we use a silver as antibacterial compound sometimes in some programs.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Are there any home tests to give us an indication of gut health, or do they have to go to?
No.
It still has to be sent off and scientifically, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, scientifically interpreted. I have histamine sensitivity. A lot of the fermented foods produce histamine.
Yeah, true, yes. So again, histamine is linked to our gut health, specific type of gut bacteria. So again, fix the gut bacteria, you'll be able to tolerate histamine better.
Yeah. My son has a nut allergy and was born by C-section. Can it be cured?
Oh,
that's a good question.
That's a good question. I heard of this therapy for classic allergies, for nuts specifically, when children are born with this kind of allergies, right? When you do a microdosing of this nut, like every day, I can't remember the and yes, it's quite successful. It doesn't work for everyone, but worth looking into. Yes.
Okay, so it's possible. This is one close to my heart. Is there a link between hormonal cycles and gut bacteria?
Yes, absolutely.
If you get the stomach upsets around period on a monthly basis, absolutely, I have that.
Yeah.
And pre menstrual cycle, more constipation, more bloating. Yeah. And is that around the gut bacteria too? Should you change how you eat more around that time, or?
There is also a liver gut axis that is responsible for that whole kind of hormonal elimination and hormonal balance. But that beta glucuronidase, that marker in the stool sample, will tell us a lot about how many steroid hormones actually end up in recirculation. So we will be able to tell you, yeah.
Okay. What are the two types of bacteria which are missing in cases of depression? Self-happy.
Did I not have a slide on that?
You did.
I thought I put it in.
You did put it in, and that we can go back. Yeah, that can be you can look at that again. But also, I would say, I'll send out, when we send out the recording, we'll send out the link for Olga's TED talk, because that specifically talks about that subject. So that will help to watch that too.
Yeah, I talk about the 2 types of bacteria that are missing in depression, yes.
Yeah.
In the TED talk, yeah.
Yeah. Can you recommend an Akkermansia probiotic on the market?
No, unfortunately, this is the whole, this is the holy grail of weight regulation, and the whole of, if you Google Akkermansia and probiotic, you'll probably see that a lot of studies are done, but they are not successful. So we don't know, we don't understand why, if we put Akkermansia in a capsule, it does not stay inside of us. It just goes through and out, that's it. So there must be, the only way how you can put it in yourself is through fecal, what's it called? It's basically to put it through the other end, yeah, and it's that's not safe. Yeah,
that's not safe. So that's quite a big process, and not the way
they do it on the animal studies, and it's successful. But we way off to doing that to humans yet. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a question from Lisa about organic, like your position on organic vegetables, because her point is, organic is available, but not the wide range of 30 plus possibly isn't available. So, how strong is your organic preference?
Okay, so there is dirty dozen. If you Google that, there is a list of vegetables vegetables and fruits that must be eaten organic, because they are, they usually have very high pesticide levels. If they
berries, isn't it?
Yeah, it's berries, peppers, like avocados. It doesn't matter really. Because they have skin and you remove the skin, but
bananas don't matter. What is that? I'll put it on chat. What is the Google you said?
It's called Dirty Dozen.
Dirty Dozen. Okay, Dirty Dozen. Google that. I'm just going to put this out to everybody. Okay, the Dirty Dozen. Menopause, Maureen, yeah, I think that's a whole separate subject. We could spend another 2 hours on menopause. I promise we'll do a session on menopause soon. Okay, gosh. So thank you so much. I mean, really great information there. I have one more question. Actually, I have 2 more questions myself. Brown seaweed, is that kelp?
No, I don't think so. It's a type, yeah.
Okay. And for yogurt, I mean, you've listed that as a probiotic. So I'm assuming organic, natural, bio-live yogurt, right? Not yogurt with sweeteners and.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, obvious but worth stating. Great. Wow. Amazing. Thank you. I could keep you on here for hours and just throw questions at you myself, but I'm sure you've got your day to get on with. But thank you so much, Olga. It's been enlightening again, and so much great information.